Alright, welcome to Hack the File. This is Michael Lopez. We are going to start a new series. I actually have been talking about it for a little bit. It's the network basics for hackers. I need to complete this book by the end of this month, so I'm gonna try to just focus on this book and make a bunch of videos of this if I can. This is going to be a new series because I have a project that I need to complete this year in my master's class, and I need to understand more about how hackers navigate around the network. And it doesn't have to be intermediate because I'm assuming that in my project it's going to be basic, right? So we're teaching basic skills, so this is probably be perfect. If anything, it'll give me a reference point. I'll have hands-on experience, and that way my project will come out better. Anyway, so yeah, this is going to be our new series. It's a master. This one's by OccupytheWeb. Now, if you don't know who OccupytheWeb is, we can go and look at some of his other books. So like this Linux basic for hackers, I'm making a series of this one too. He wrote this book, and let me see, what's the other one? I think I have another one that he has here, but anyways, so he writes a bunch of different books, and he is a hacker, so or has a lot of experience working for governments and stuff like that, hacking. So this dude is legit. His books are great, and this one was on just a physical copy as of now. Maybe in a couple years he'll put it to digital, but I digitized it myself off of the book I bought, and that way I can just go through it with you guys. Now we're gonna have some struggles maybe because there might be some pages that we can't read, and I'll just refer to the actual physical book and look it up. So, but so here we go. Like I said, we're gonna try to get this series knocked out in a month. Okay, I got a month and a half to knock this out, or maybe two. Network basics for hackers, how they work and how they break. See, I like that. That's what I need to know. Okay. The project I'm doing is going to be in this, and then my own penetration techniques, right? That based off of shadow initiation protocol, CISP, shadow initiation sequence protocol, and that's basically my own style that I've came up with of how to start attacking and a target, and based off kind of like the martial arts. And so that's what my project's going to be. So when I finish my project, I'm going to upload that and show you guys what I came up with. And the foundations of that project, I guess what we actually want to work on is networking, the networking side of it. So that's why we're going to read this book, and then my philosophy, and then final report writing. And I'm actually going to go through this book, right, and see, writing an effective penetration testing report, and we're going to go through this book as well. It's probably a short book. It was $1. I want to do this book too, and we're going to write an effective see if this is good, right? And at the end, I'm going to show in my project how to write a report as well. So let's get started with this book. See if we can get it done. Okay, we never read the table of contents. I really don't care. I'm just going to go through them. All right, let's read a little bit about the author. All right, so let's read this. Okay, welcome to the long-awaited Network Basics for Hackers. This is the fourth book in the series Linux Basics for Hackers from me, Occupy the Web. Like Linux Basics for Hackers, I intend this book to provide basic framework to begin a networking concept, applications to Linux, and vulnerabilities of the various protocols. We'll start with some basic networking, TCP, IP concepts, and then progress to tools for analyzing network packets and protocols. Then we will examine each of the major networking protocols, build their applications in the Linux system, and analyze their weaknesses that can be exploited by hackers. Finally, we'll advance some more advanced topics such as automobile networks. We're going to skip that section. SCADA ICS networks, and we're going to really go into that one because that's what I'm doing in that's what I'm teaching in my college. Radio frequency, and that's another one for robots, and mobile networks, and that's another one. So this is going to be a great book. I'm so excited. I'm assuming you have little or no networking background, but I am assuming that you have read Linux Basic for Hackers. We'll be using Linux exclusively to build our various applications. Linux commands are not explained in this book, so please refer to Linux Basic for Hackers commands, and then I'll get us through that. In addition, we'll be using Kali Linux in our platform. Most of the Kali Linux editions will work. Examples in this book use various editions from 2019 to 2024. You can download Kali Linux, and I've already got all that, so we're going to skip that section. In addition, recent Kali editions require that you use sudo before commands that require root privileges. Keep this in mind. If you get an error, let's just say command not found, you'll probably need to proceed the command with the sudo. Reading my Getting Started Becoming a Master Hacker will also be helpful, but it is not assumed here in the book. In these chapters, and I've got that book too, so he wrote that one too. In this chapter, we'll use Metasploit. You can gain the necessary background in the widely used tool by reading my tutorials on Metasploit. So we got some experience with that from the Ethical Hacking book series. Or reading my popular book Metasploit Basic for Hackers. I never what? In online bookstore at Hackers Arise. Oh, because can you only buy that on Hackers Arise? Dang, that's cool. I don't pretend that this book will make you an expert network engineer. Of course not. But I do hope it provides you with some insights into these protocols and the weaknesses from a hacker or security engineer perspective. What is a white hat hacker? Hackers Arise, my website. He's always plugging his website, which you can't hate. I looked at it. It's a great website. Are a white hat hacker training site. This means that we use our skills for good. Sorry. I always laugh at that because it's like, it reminds me of the Jedi, in Star Wars. I've been watching a lot of Star Wars lately with all this crap going on in this nation right now. And, with the rebellion and stuff like that. You could take a young Jedi is training to be a Jedi or that has powers, and you can teach him them, but you don't know if he's going to become a Sith or not, right? For every Sith Lord, you hope that you get one Obi-Wan. You get what I'm saying? You feel me on that? Obviously, this means things like penetration testing and cybersecurity. This is the textbook definition of white hat hacker, and you will see in many hacking cybersecurity certification exams. Rather than be confined to this textbook's definition, I prefer to expand the definition of the white hat hacker. Having hacking skills is similar to having a superpower. You have responsibilities and risks to go with it, just like I said, Jedi. If your nation's government is authoritarian and censoring material over the internet, I see it as an incumbent upon the white hat hacker with our hacking superpowers to help keep the internet free and open. See, now he's putting in his philosophy just like I do. When governments feel threatened by their own people, they often shut down internet access to communication of its people. In such a case, a white hat hacker can help keep communication free and open. If a nation's government is illegally or unethically spying on its own people, then it is responsible for the white hat hacker to help those people maintain their privacy. I would say that's more gray hat area. I don't know. See, now he's talking about the rebellion. If one authoritarian nation, see, now he's using the word authoritarian. To the authoritarians, you're an insurrectionist if you're going against them. If one authoritarian nation rolls its military over another free people, then it's the responsibility in capital letters of the white hat hacker to respond. Damn. Remember, we are good guys, and we have the power that few humans possess to protect freedom. Damn! I like this guy. The white hat hacker is not only in capital and bold a penetration / cybersecurity professional. The white hat hacker is also a beacon and a warrior for information freedom and human rights on the internet. Man, damn. That's just beautiful. Now you can tell that to Occupy the Web. They need to release them Epstein files for you know what I'm saying? Our action and activities in Ukraine. Okay, we're gonna skip all that now. We're getting into some really personal stuff, which I don't. That's your deal. Chapter 1: Network Basics. So many of you, so like I look at this as like Jedi training. You know what I'm saying? That's the way he looks at it. Obviously, he sees the ethical hackers as heroes, and I see it as training. I can guide you to be good, and you should be, and you need to be, right, in this world. And he's right, we do need ethical hackers, but you know, I can only control a world that ends at my fingertips, right? All right. So many of you have written to me asking whether networking is a key hacker skill. The unequivocal answer is yes. You are very unlikely to be successful in this field without a fundamental understanding of network and networking. As a result, here is my network basics for hackers to help you get started. IP addresses, IP protocol addresses, IP addresses, right? Make the world go round, or at least enable us to email, Zoom, watch YouTube videos, tweet, and navigate the web. It's almost as important as the world going around. Damn, this guy's really controversial. Each digital device, computer, laptop, phone, tablet, etc., is an assigned IP address, and this is what enables us to communicate and connect with it. Imagine an IP address as being similar to your house address. Without the address, no one can find you and send you some snail mail. When he says snail mail, he's just talking about mail, right? Okay, just in case. The IP address systems we are presently using is known as IP version 4 or IP4. Now, hold on. Before I continue reading it, I'm just going to tell you guys right now. This is going to be, it literally says it in the title. It's basics. I don't care if you guys already know this or not. What do I say about repetition? Repetition, practice. It doesn't matter. I already know all this stuff. I'm going to go through it again. And we're going to go through the basics, and we're going to do this book word for word. I'm not going to try to skip too many stuff, okay? If you already know this, skip ahead in the video. It's fine. But there's nothing wrong with repetition and going over something you already know over again, okay? It's good for your brain. It is made up of 34 bits of 4 octets, 8 characters, or 4 groups of 8 bits on and off switches, okay? Take, for instance, 192.168.1.101. Each 101. Each of the numbers between the dots is the decimal equivalent of 8 bits. This means that we can calculate 2 numbers that computers use represented by 8 bits and convert them into decimal numbers that humans are more accustomed to working with. See the diagram below. Each one of the octets, 8 bits, is capable of representing numbers within the range 0 through 255, 2 to the 8th power. Right? Does that look familiar at 255? Yeah, it does. An IP4 address, dotted decimal rotation, 172 dot, and this is showing you the one byte, the binary number equivalent. Dot 16 binary equivalent. That's 8 equals 8 bits. 254.1. 32 bits times 32 bits 4 times 8 dot or 4 bytes. Okay. Classes of IP addresses. Now, this is just a basic breakdown of that. Okay, that's fine. Classes Classes of IP addresses. IP addresses are generally put into 3 classes: A, B, and C. A, B, and C. The ranges of the classes are as follows. Class A is 0.0. Through 127.255.255. Class B is 128.0.0 to 191.255. And Class C is 1.2. Okay, so this is just a range, A, B, and C. In Chapter 2, a range of IP addresses, kind of look at it like a range of neighborhoods, right? In Chapter 2, we will address subnetting and subnet masks that vary with these different IP classes. Public versus private IP addresses. It is important to note our IP addresses system has its limitations. The most significant restraint is that there is not enough IP addresses to cover all the addresses that need to connect to the internet. The IP4 systems we are working with now has 4.3 billion IP addresses, with 7.5 billion people on the planet, and far more devices is certainly not enough. As a result, a system was developed to reuse a group of IP addresses within the LAN. Okay, I hope he goes over that are not usable over the internet. These addresses can be used over and over again within each local area network. There you go. LAN, local area network. But not over the internet, thereby conserving the number of IP addresses necessary to keep the world going round. These private addresses include... Now, this was a lot of information in one sentence that did not cover everything, but it's okay. Hopefully, if not, I'll clear it up for us. Okay, now here's some ranges. Okay, you have probably seen the private IP addresses beginning in 192.168 blah blah blah, or 10 blah 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 on your Kali system when you type in ifconfig, right? We've done this before. We typed in ifconfig on our VM, and we get the 192.168 and then these last whatever tells us what device we have. This is your private IP that is only usable on the local area network, local LAN. Okay. To communicate over the internet, your IP address must be translated to public IP by a NAT device. Okay. DHCP. Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol assigns IP addresses dynamically. This means that you do not have the same IP address. Emotional damage? No. It means that you do not have the same IP addresses all the time. Most of the time, these IP address assignments are on a local area network. Remember, on LANs, we use private IP addresses. When each device is connected to the LAN, it must request an IP address. That device sends the request to the DHCP server that assigns an IP address to that system for a fixed length of time known as a lease. See, and I didn't know they leased them. Each time you connect the LAN, you are likely receiving a different dynamic, or unless you set it to static. But usually the same range for instance, 192.168 through these two, right? All right, so I don't think he's gonna go into a lot of detail on all this stuff, but okay, so this is the thing that I hate about when you're in a field and they specifically make it so difficult to understand that it takes you years to figure out, basically, in a nutshell what it is, or easy what it is. It took me years to figure this out, like to see it in the most simplest form. Okay, so he said that we're running out of IP addresses. Okay, so the IP4 is what we use now, right? Everybody knows it's IP4. People know that. We're running out of IP addresses because it uses 8-bit? It said 8 bits, 4 bits, whatever. So we're running out of IP addresses. We have to assign each IP address to each device. So there's too many devices now. But years ago, when they first came up with the IP address range, IP4, there wasn't that many. So they're like, we'll never run out. But now we're starting to run out. Okay, so now we're coming up with IP6, right? That's the new one. And that one will give us, what, trillions? Okay, so here's the deal. You have a problem like that. People in the industry were like, damn, we have a problem. How do you solve that? So what they do is the DHCP, apparently that's what it's saying, that they lease you an IP address if you have it on a rotating dynamic host configuration protocol, DHCP. It's going to give you one IP address for your router, for your because your internet service provider provides you with the router. Okay, it's going to give you one IP address, and that you're going to have subnets IP addresses in that one address for the rest of your devices, and that's how they kind of control. So in other words, each company, each individual household has one IP address instead of. So I've got 20 different devices in my home. So that would be 20. That would be 20, 30 different, or 20. I'm sorry, 20 different IP addresses that they would have to give me. But instead, they give me one, and then the rest of them are on my subnet under it, right? So that's how they fixed it. And this kind of shows you here, right? So here's your DHCP server, assigns IP addresses in the range of this range. It gives you one, and then your client DH requests. Okay, this is just going over it. Yeah, so that and then you can each time you connect. Okay. So that's how it works. Okay, in a nutshell. NAT, Network Address Translation. NAT is a protocol whereby internal private IP addresses are translated into external public IP addresses, can be routed through the internet to the destination. Remember, private IP addresses of the system inside the LAN cannot use their IP addresses on the internet because they're not unique. Every LAN uses basically the same IP address of the inside network. That's what I just said, right? But your NAT translates all the other devices' IP so they can access the internet. So so let's keep reading. The NAT device accepts requests to traverse the internet from the internet internal machine. It then records the machine's IP address in a table and converts it to IP address to external IP addresses of the router. See? When the packet returns from its destination, the NAT device looks into the save table's original request and forwards the packet to the internal IP address in the system that made the original request. Okay, this sounds very difficult because it has to have technical terms, because in the industries they're taking these technical terms that people come up with and they're putting them together, and it makes it just so complicated sounding. But like I said, if you break this down in a nutshell, it's the same thing. Your one IP address they give you, okay, for your router or whatever. That's what it says in there, for your router on your internet service provider, and they give you one. The one that they give you, okay, that's the only one that has access to the internet. That's your gate. Like, let's say you have a castle. That's your gate in your castle. That's the only one that could communicate with the internet, because it's the only one that's unique. It's like saying this is your house. And then let's say you have other people living in your home. Nobody can write them letters unless they use your address. And they got to put, and then so specific to them, they're going to put their name and maybe their room number. It's like an apartment. That's the perfect way to say it. The apartment has the same address, but it has different people living. That's the perfect way to say it. Damn, that's great. And so in order for those people in an apartment unit to get their letters, they have to have their specific room number and specific name, but they're still going to use the same address because they live in the same building. The only way for them to get out and in information or actually in that world in word way, in the actual way, is for them to is for somebody to use the same address but specific person and room number. Okay, but in this world, in the cyber world, they can't communicate in or out unless they have the NAT to translate it right to the one address they have. That's what it basically says. When working properly, the individual system and users don't realize the translation is taking place. That's the NAT system. Okay. For instance, the diagram above shows 4 computers with private IP addresses behind a device that is serving as both NAT device and a router, not uncommon. This device uses their private IP address, which is the subnet, the people living in the apartment, within the LEN, within the apartment. But when they want to communicate over the internet, the NAT device translates it to the public IP, which is the outsider people living outside the apartment or the real world, or the internet in this case, that are unique on the internet. In this way, the routers along the way know exactly where to send the packets. So here's a private IP address. Inside, it's a phone. There's another phone. VX on a private network, and this is VX is private side of the NAT, and then boom, and then your router translates it and lets it get to the public internet. And you can call this guy, and then that's how it works. Okay, but that sounded really complicated because these big words, and I can't stand that stuff. So I'm gonna try to break that down the easiest way, and then you learn the big words too. Ports. Okay, so ports. Ports are a kind of sub-address. The IP address is the primary address, and the ports is the sub-addresses. Using a well-worn but effective metaphor, think of IP addresses as the street addresses, yes, we already did that, or apartments, of a building, and then the port as the apartment number. Oh, yeah, nice. That's a pretty cool way to see that too, yeah. I need the street address to get to the correct building, but I need the apartment address to find the individual person. Nice. This is similar to ports. The IP addresses gets us to the right host. That's exactly the metaphor that I just used. You know what's funny? If you know my channel, I don't pre none of this stuff, pregame none of this stuff. I go freestyle off this. This is the first time I've read this book. But the port takes us to the proper service, say HTTP on port 80. Now, HTTP is the hypertext transmission protocol, right? On port 80. We already know that. And that's insecure, right? Yeah, you know that if you've been watching my videos. There are 65,000. God, I had an interview, and I'll say this over and over again. They asked me. They said they literally asked me. They said it was a pen testing interview, and this is when I first graduated, and I didn't really, I was just fresh it out the game. And they were like, "You're doing great, okay, but here's the last question." They were like, "So how many ports is there? How many in total?" And I was like, 60. I know there's 65,000 of them. Apparently I wasn't good enough. I can never remember the exact damn number. It's so funny, but it's 65,536. So like, if somebody asks me later on, a couple months from now, I'll say 65,500 or something. Can never remember it, but I'll see. The more I go over this, the more I'll get it, and I'll get it down. So it's 65,536. So if you guys can't see this screen that good, I can zoom in. I've already got it at 140%. So just if I need to zoom into something particular, I'll zoom into it. This is why I'm reading this word for word, because at least you can hear what I'm saying. All right. So there are 65,336, 2 raised to the 16th power. Yeah, like I'm gonna remember that, too. Ports. The first 1,024 are generally referred to as the common ports. Now that's very important. Obviously, people don't remember all 65,536 ports unless they're a savant, or even the 1,024 most common ports. As a hacker, security engineer, and or network engineer, though, there are a few ports that you should know by heart. Yes, there is, and that's these. Now we can zoom into these. Let's go into 150. Let's go into 400. Let's go into 200. And then scoot this over. Alright, you can't really see this, but this is something that all potential hackers, or even IT, or even anybody interested in computers, you need to try to have as many of these memorized. Okay, I don't have them all memorized. Okay, but you need to. This is very important. This is I would say, if you're getting into the cybersecurity field, into the network field, or anything with computers, this is a must. You have to know these. Now your tools will scan these, but these are in your top 1,000 most common protocols. Okay, so port number 21 is your FTP protocol, right? And you can't see it right there, but I know it's FTP. It's FTP, and that's your file transfer protocol. Now, this is used to transfer files from in and out of your network, right? TCP.UDP. This is what it uses. These are the types it uses: transmission control protocol, and the UDP is the unilateral. I don't know the protocol, but it's the unsecure one. It's the one we usually use for like Zoom and stuff, because it doesn't have any security, so it's faster, and you get less lag and stuff like that. We use it for gaming and everything. Okay, port numbers. Number 22 is SSH. You know what the SSH is? Secure Shell Protocol or something like that. Anyways, you already know what that is, and these are the protocols you use. Okay, so port number 23 is, I can't see what that is, and I can't even remember. See, so I don't have them all memorized, right? I never used port 23, but apparently it's a vulnerability protocol too. Okay, SNTP is your port 25, and that's your mail protocol. Okay, and then I think that's 63. I don't know what that is. See, I should go grab my book. Let me grab my book. Okay, so I'm going to need to grab my book so I can make sure I have, because you can't really see that good. Oh, sure. Alright, so I'm gonna grab my book too, because I'm not gonna guess. I'm gonna give you guys the right information that's right here. But I can't see what that is, and I don't remember what port 63 is. See, I don't even have them all memorized. Man, it's even worse in the book. Oh, that's a 53, it looks like. Man, that's terrible. That's terrible printing. That's a DNS protocol. 53? Should be 53. Now, if we're not sure, we can look it up. Okay. This is terrible printing in that book. Okay. Anyways, we get the gist, right? So these are all the ones you need to. Now, what you can do is you can. This is probably not all of them, right? Here's port 80 HTTP. HTTPS is 443. So just Google that, okay? We can use a tool such as Nmap to see the ports. Let me go back to 150 at least. We can use a tool such as Nmap to see what ports are open on a system. In this way, the security engineer or hacker can see what ports are open, which services are running on the targeted system. For instance, to see all the ports open on Metasploitable 2 system, an intentionally vulnerable Linux system developed by good people at Metasploit, we can run the following command. All right, we're gonna run these commands. All right, here we go. Let me go here. Hide this. I've got everything running. Doesn't matter. All right. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna run net discover, right? So I can get the IP addresses of my virtual machines that I have running on here. Now I only have two things running. Now that's my firewall and my Metasploitable, right? So let's do that. So I'm gonna run the net discover, right? And the more you run stuff, the more you remember, right? So here's net discover, and net discover is gonna tell me what's on my network, right? It says I need to run root, right? So what's the command line kung fu? It's sudo space exclamation exclamation, and it brings up my my net discover again with the sudo in front of it, which is a cool little shortcut, right? So now I'm running net discover, and net discover is going to scan and tell me what's on my network, right? And the rule of thumb is, see this 192.168.1.1? It's the shortest one of these two, right? Of these IP addresses, right? So it's gonna be my firewall, because your firewall, I think is always, I can't remember if it's always designated 1 or if it's always designated the last of the 255. I can't remember. Anyways, but it's usually it's the short. Just remember, it's the shortest one. It's gonna be your shortest one, right? So we know that this IP is not my. That's gonna be my firewall. So the next thing I said there was my Metasploitable. So this is going to be this one's going to be the IP address. So 192.168.1.100, right? Which makes sense. They're just going to throw it in. If I had something else, it'd probably be 102 or 4 or whatever. So I've got two things. So first thing I did is I ran net discover. I've got that. Now I'm going to run this. And so now that I know the IP address of my target system, which is and they want the Metasploitable, right? So I'm gonna run an Nmap on this. So this is all I gotta remember is this. So it's dash little s big T. Okay. So let's run that. So here I go. So here, sudo nmap dash little s big T. And we could do help and it'll tell me what that is, right? And then space, what's my IP was 192.168.1.100. Oh man, come on. My nubs lock's not on. 192.168.1.100. Okay. Invalid operation, sudo apt-get. What the? Not what I typed in, is it? Sudo nmap little s big T. Okay, looks better. All right, so it ran a scan, right? And you guys know what nmap is. If you don't, Google it. It's a tool that it runs scans on those ports, right? On the ports we were talking about. Okay, that's a basic nmap scan. Okay, so now what it's saying, okay, so here's the rule of thumb when you're learning all this stuff, okay? Read your output. A lot of people, they'll do it and then they're like, what's going on? I don't know. It doesn't work. Or what am I reading? Well, read it. Try to understand it. The more you read it, the more you're going to understand it. But if you just browse and skip through stuff, you're not going to understand. So the first thing we do is we read. So starting Nmap 7.95, apparently that's the version, right? http nmap.org at 2577. It's giving me the time and date right here, okay? Nmap scan report for this IP address, which is my Metasploitable. It scanned it, okay? Host is up, that means it's running. Not shown is 977 close TCP ports. Con refused. So, just because something says it's open or closed doesn't mean, it says it's open or whatever, it doesn't mean it's open. It could just be the firewall of something, right? But that's something different. I don't know. Anyway, so let's look at the ports that it scanned that were open. So it says port 21 TCP. Now these are the part of the ports that you need to memorize, right? So port 21, which one was that? Let's go look. So port 21 was file transfer protocol, TCP UDP, port 21, right? See, and that apparently is open. It's a vulnerability. File transfer protocol. So it's going to tell you right here, open, state, or close, or whatever. It's saying 977 or close. This does the, so that dash little s big T probably only does the top 1,000 ports, right? Because it says, or whatever, 1,000 whatever, right? How many? Anyways, 22 TCP open SSH. Okay, Telnet, these are all vulnerable, okay? And they're all open apparently, right? Because this is a Metasploitable machine, right? It's meant to be open and vulnerable. So we ran that. Okay, now let's look at the next, what else it wants us to do. So we ran this, great. Let's keep going. I want to see how long I'm gonna make this video about a little bit until we get tired. All right, so this is what it came up with, and that's what we saw right now, right? Okay, Nmap then reports back to the open ports and the default service on that port. TCP/IP. Next, I want to introduce you to the basics of TCP/IP, i.e., Transmission Control Protocol (TCP) and Internet Protocol (IP). Now, the more you say these things, the more you're going to remember them. Like just right off the dome, because you're in the industry, right? Or the more you deal with these things, the more you're gonna understand them. You're gonna know them by heart. They're the most common protocols used on the internet on the internet for communications. I actually was in an interview and they asked me what those meant. To become a proficient hacker, forensic investigator, or simply a good network engineer, you should understand the structure and anatomy of these protocols. It says you should, but I say you need to understand the structure and anatomy of these protocols. From my experience, many professionals in these fields do not understand the basics of TCP/IP, which means that you will definitely have an advantage over them if you do understand. Right? I like that guy. Protocols are simply an agreed upon way to communicate. For instance, we here on Hackers Arise have agreed upon English language that with all the rules and grammar as our way to communicate. Thus, our protocol, if we do not have an agreed upon a way to communicate, people would be using many languages, grammars, rules, and none of us would understand each other. So, that is the history of the protocols, TCP/IP, in a nutshell. Basically, they back in our history, in our past, when we first created the internet and the ways to communicate with packets and stuff, and we HTTP and all that stuff, and hypertext, we had to come up with the common language. That's it. And we came up with the rules around the world. We all came up with these protocols as how to communicate with each other. So anyways, okay, so protocols are similar. A protocol simply defines a way of communication with all its rules. These rules are usually defined by RFC requests for comments. There are many protocols in use in the internet. These include the TCP/IP, UDP, and FTP, HTTP, CMTP. The more you mess with these, the more you're gonna know what all these are. Okay, this right here is your mail. This is the hypertext, and they're secure. These ones port 80. It's vulnerable. There's the HTTPS is the one we use, and that's 440, I think, or 444. No, I'm just kidding. It's 440, right? Let me look that shit up. Now I'm just making myself look bad. I'm tired right now. Yes. No, it didn't tell me. Anyways, so that's the port. I'm sorry, I don't know why I was saying protocol. HTTPS is 443, and that's the default port. Why am I saying protocol? Because the protocol is HTTPS. All right. Anyways, there are many protocols in use on the internet. These include, okay, we read that, and each has its own set of rules that must be complied with to communicate effectively, similar to the rules we use in communication via written languages. And I can't really see this, but this shows you. Let's zoom up real close. Kind of, sort of, what protocols are in what layers of the OSCP protocol. Let me see. I can't read that. I don't know why I said OSCP. God, what's wrong with me today? Damn. Okay, so this one says DNS is in the application layer. Your your network management, SNMP, it looks like. I'm trying to pull up a better reference of this. OSI model. God, I just went through this. This is the OSI model, different layers. Okay, here it goes. Here's a better breakdown. Right. Well, it's not a better breakdown, but I mean, it's sort of, because you can't read that at all. So let's see if I can find a little bit kind of sort of what it's talking about. Oh, come on. Open up. So here's your application layer, layer 7, application, interface for users and apps to access network services, HTTP, FTP, SMTP, and DNS. That's basically what that is showing, and it has more, right? But this shows you the example protocols, right? So you could do your own research, just research OSI. What did I type in here? OSI 7-layer protocols, and then it shows you what a breakdown of what's in there. Okay. Arguably, the two most important protocols for use over the internet are IP and TCP. So let's take a look at each of these. Internet protocol. Internet IP or Internet protocol is the protocol that is used to define the source and destination IP address of a packet as it traverses the internet. It is often used in conjunction with other protocols such as TCP, hence often used in conjunction TCP/IP protocol. Let's look at an IP packet header and see what information it contains that can be useful to the aspiring hacker and for forensic investigators. So this, I can't even read this, but I'm sure that, yeah, this is a packet header. And let's see. Can't see that. So, anyways, so version I8 header length. There's no better pictures, I guess. Oh, this one's not bad. Yeah, here you go. I'm actually gonna put this on my desktop, or I should actually print this out. This is great. So, pictures. All right, there you go. That looks the same, right? Yeah, there you go. So this one you can actually see. So this is what the packets are made of, right? This is how it traverses through the network. And this is the header, right? So we have the version, we have the header length, we have the type of the service, total length, identification, IP flags, fragment offsets, time to live, protocol, header checksum, source address, destination address, IP option, data. So does it make sense that when we tear this apart and we're hacking or we're looking through the network or we're looking at pieces using tools or whatever, we can find out where this thing is going, where you know, it's time to live, you know, and all this stuff. So let's oh right there. Oh, we're real big, so let's go to 125, 50, 200. Let's go 150. Yeah, just bear with me. I'm just trying to get used to this. I scanned this in, so. All right. So now we're going to explain all this stuff. So row 1, version. This defines the version of IP, either version 4 or version 6. Remember we were talking about IP4, IP6? Well, it's going to show on that piece of the header, right? Okay. IHL defines the header length. Header length is the next one. Okay. Type of service, TOS. This defines the type of service of this packet. This includes minimize delay, maximize throughput, maximize reliability, maximize monetary costs, etc., etc., etc. Or hold on, let me see if I can pull this up. Okay. Now, total length. This defines the total length of the IP datagram, including the data or the fragment. Its maximum is 65,535. Systems and other service devices, which can also be used in conjunction with the Windows field to identify the operating system of the sender. Fragment offset. This field is used when packets are fragmented. It defines where the packets should be reassembled from the beginning of the IP header. Where is that picture? There's a fragment offset right there, right? So we're going through one by one. Time to live. Row 3. Time to live, TTL. This is the time to live. This defines how many hops across the internet before the packet expires. It varies by operating system, making it helpful to identify the OS of the sender. Okay, let's read that one more time because that's really important. Okay, this defines how many hops across the internet before the packet expires. Now, the reason why it expires, you're probably going, I didn't know it expires. It expires because it will go on infinite forever. And we had problems back, and it's a problem that we fixed. we implemented a time to live on it, okay? Or it'll just keep spinning and looking where it's trying to go, never finds it if it has a problem or whatnot. Anyways, there's more to that, but that's the basic why we have this, okay? Why it expires in the first place. It varies by the operating system, making it helpful to identify the OS of the sender. Helpful to identify the operating system of the sender. Protocol. This field defines what protocols are being used with IP. Most often it will be 6 or TCP, 1 for ICMP, 17 for UDP, amongst others. And what did it say that was? Protocol? Okay, yeah, that's right there. Protocol. Header checksums. This is an error checking field that calculates the checksums and simple algorithm to determine the integrity of the data of the header. Role 4 or 5, source and destination. These roles of the IP header are probably the most important part of the header, as it contains the source and the destination, where it's coming from, where it's going. Role 6, options. This field is variable in length, and its use is optional. As you might expect. Padding. This field is used to fill out, if necessary, the remaining bits and bytes of the header. TCP Transmission Control Protocol. In the TCP header, there are numerous critical fields that the aspirating hacker or forensic investigator should understand. Okay, let me see if I can find a better. Actually, you can see that pretty good. Source port, destination port. Let me see if I can find one anyways, because I want a better one. Show me a. What was it? What did he say it was? TCP header. Man, I like that. Came out pretty damn good. Alright, that's TCP header right there. Source port, destination port, sequence number, acknowledgement number, do RSV, flags, window, checksum. Okay. Role 1, source port / destination port. Probably most importantly, these are the source port and destination port. These fields determine what port of communication came from source and where it's going. Role 2, sequence number. The sequence number is generated by the source machine's TCP stack and is used to make certain that the packets are arranged in proper sequence when they arrive. It is also important in defeating man-in-the-middle attacks. Role 3, acknowledgement number. This is an echo of sequence numbers sent back by the receiving system. It basically says, I received the packet with sequence number, and in this way the sender knows that the packet has arrived. If the sender does not receive an acknowledgement number back in a fixed amount of time, it will resend the packet to make certain the receiver gets the packet. In this way, TCP is reliable. In contrast, UDP does not do this, therefore it's unreliable. It's unreliable, but it's fast. Role 4, and vulnerable. The fourth row has some critical information. Let's skip over data offset and the reserved fields that takes us to 8 bits near the middle. Row 4. There are infamous flags of three-way handshakes and nmap scans. The first 2 bits, CWR and ECE, are beyond the scope of this lesson. The next 6 bits are ERG, ACT, and SYN and FIN flags. These flags you got to remember these two. This is when you're doing Wireshark, you'll know what these are now, right? Because Wireshark will show you these and where they're coming from and stuff. It's pretty cool. Wireshark is awesome. I think I'm gonna do some Wireshark eventually. These flags are used by TCP communication. CYN is the opening of a new connection. That's part of the handshake, right? FIN, the normal soft closing of a connection. act, the acknowledgement of a packet. All packets are three-way handshake. All packets after the three-way handshake should have this bit set. Okay, it's three-way handshake. RST, the hard close of the connection, is usually used to communicate that the packet has arrived at the wrong port or IP. ERG, this flag indicates that the following data is urgent. PSH, push the data past the buffer to the application. All right, we're gonna stop at, let me see how far this goes to the next. So here's the CYN. So we're gonna stop here because it's going all the way, and I love it. I love networking, right? Should we just finish up the chapter since it's only, okay, let's just finish this chapter. It's not that long. Okay. If you're familiar with Nmap or HPing3 as recon tools, right? We just did Nmap. There's another one called HPing3. You can use scans utilizing all of these flags by creating packets with flag combinations that should not be seen in the wild. We may be able to elicit a response from very secure systems or even evade detection. Let me go to the. So I got 5 more. Let's just do 5 more minutes and then we'll do another video. Window size. In some, let's just stop right there. We're gonna pick up from here on the next video. This is gonna be a fun series. I'm so excited. We're gonna learn a lot. This book is written by OccupytheWeb. He knows his stuff. If you want to learn about hacking and computers and communications, command protocol or commands, and then protocols and networking, I think this is a good book to pick up. Now, you, like it says at the start, it says that I'm assuming you've done Linux basics for hackers. Well, I would go even further. I would go a little bit further than that too, because you do need to know the network's basics and all that, right? But I would say this, how this book will help you a lot, is look up the history of the internet. Now, there used to be a video that was old that I took, that I watched in 2018. So it's not that old, but the video itself was from like the 90s or something, or 2000, and it shows you the history of the internet. I would start there, right? Just for shits and giggles. And it's good for your mind so when you're reading this, you can kind of put it all together. You have to understand what the internet is. So this is going through piece by piece inside the machine, I would say. This is showing you, okay, now this and this is how these are protocol. But you don't know what the hell a protocol is. You don't know what a port is, and he's trying to explain it, but you don't know what SNMP is. You don't know what TCP and all that, and it's explaining to you. But like I said, look up the history of the internet. The history of the internet tells you why it was even created in the first place, and all the trials and tribulations they had, and they had to put into place to create it, and then how they ultimately went from, okay, so here's a nutshell. I give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Okay, it was the Department of Defense that came up with the idea for the internet. Okay, what happened was they were worried that if they were bombed, the way we were communicating at the time was through telephone wires and stuff, right? And Morse code or whatever the hell. And let's just say telephone wires. And so if a bunch of telephone wires got bombed, then we would lose communications. This is actual war. So they were like, we have to invent a new way to communicate to where if something gets bombed, we still get the message through the other poles. And that's where they came up with the idea. And so somebody, I can't remember the name, figured, hey, if we'll cut the data into packets, and that's where it starts. So they started cutting them into packets, little pieces of data, and sending them one at a time, trying to find where they're going. That way, if one's blown up, they'll try to find another way to go. And if that's blown up, they'll try to find another way to go. Right? They'll backtrack and go find another way. It was ingenious, and that's where it starts. So then, when you understand what it is, then you understand what these guys are talking about. Like, oh, packets, headers, and because then you start putting together how it works. Okay, and you're like, oh well, of course, if the packets are doing that, they would need to know what order they're. So if they knew what order they were in, and that's where the headers and all that come in, right? So you gotta know how to put it back together when piece by piece finally show up to where they're supposed to go. They need to know which order they need to be in. So then that's what it helps them get it put it back together. So understanding, that's where I would start though. Okay, that's where, like, I always try to emphasize the history of something, because if you know where we come from, if something comes from, you know where it's at now, and you know where it's headed in the future. Does that make sense? That's what I always tell my students at school too. I always try to give them a history of something they're learning, like the conception of it, because like I said, once you understand that where it has been, you can figure it out now, and then you know how to use it in the future, or you know where it's going in the future, right? And that helps you see the whole clear picture of what you're learning. All right, so we're gonna stop there, and then we're going to pick up on the next video. And I have to get this. We're already like a quarter done. I mean, this is a small book, so I have to get this done because I have a project in November that I have to do for my master's class. So I've got to study and read all these books, and I'm gonna make videos, and I think it's gonna be great. And then I'll show you guys my final project at the end. I think it's gonna be cool because I'm putting all this knowledge together, and I'm going to create pen testing or hacking. I would say not diagram. I would say like a philosophy. There you go, based off of martial arts and sequences, right? So I don't know. I think it's gonna be cool. All right, that was Hack the File. I'll see you on the next video. I'm excited about this series, and enjoy.